Brendan Burns.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. I'm very pleased to speak in the committee stages here of the Local Government Amendment Number 2 bill. And what is behind this bill very clearly is a very, very specific agenda. Yes, it is a very specific agenda for privatisation of New Zealand's water assets. And I will give the House two examples, one relevant to noisy members for Canterbury, and I will quote from a Canterbury DHB document which warned about the consequences of this bill, and I'm also going to quote from another document, not so public, from the Minister of Health in respect of this privatisation agenda, because this raises very serious concerns, this bill, about the loss not just of New Zealand, local New Zealand control of ownership of our water supplies, but very major risks to public health. And I specifically refer, Mr Chair, to Part 1, Clauses 28, 29 and 30. And there was commentary in the Select Committee stages on those clauses around those issues from the Canterbury District Health Board. And I have to say, in 25 plus years of being in and around public life, I have never seen a submission so strongly made, in such strong language, explicit with warning to a government as this submission written by the Canterbury DHB's Manager of Healthy Physical Environments. And in it, he warns this, that deleting sections 125 to 29 of the Local Government Act effectively removes the regulations pertaining to water and sanitary services currently overseen by an independent medical officer of health. And the actions of the government in taking out the Ministry of Health's oversight of water schemes, as this bill does, is, as the Canterbury DHB states explicitly in its submission, and I quote, precisely this type of action which played a significant part in the Walkerton tragedy. Now, in 2000, in Walkerton, Ontario, a small dairy farming area in the Ontario province of Canterbury, after a new government had come in promising to sweep away the red tape, the horrendous regulations that were squeezing the lifeblood out of business. So they did that, and they took away the red tape, and the consequences of their actions, including the removal of health oversight of water schemes, where there was an outbreak, a serious outbreak of E. coli, which saw 7 people die, which saw 2,500 people get sick, and which cost an estimated $200 million in direct and indirect costs to that province of Canada. $200 million, 7 people died, and 7 people died, and 2,500 people got sick because a government came in and said, we're going to sweep away the red tape, the regulatory constraint which is strangling the lifeblood out of business, and the consequences of that were to take away the health oversight of the management of water supplies in that part of Canada, and that's precisely under the Canterbury DHBs, and I'd invite the Canterbury member opposite to stand up and challenge her DHB, which she likes to snuggle up to sometime, and tell them that they're wrong. And tell them that they're wrong on the record today, so when this happens in Canterbury under this bill, she can stand by her record and tell them how she was right. Because here it is, in black and white, from the Canterbury DHB telling this Parliament, telling this government that this will lead to a tragedy because you are removing the health oversight of water schemes in a blatant attempt to privatise our water supplies, to put in the profit motive, to take away the regulatory oversight of water schemes and put this nation at extraordinary risk. That's not my words, that is the words of the Canterbury DHB, the Medical Officer of Health and his team, who currently have some role in oversight, and by goodness, they've already got a struggle. going on trying to make sure that our drinking water is safe, because they've got a Minister of Health. They've got a Minister of Health. Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Order.
Thank you,
No,
Mr. Chair.
Order. Thank you. I'll give the call. But we're not going to have a barrage of calls. Members, I'm quite aware of people, when people take the call, and I'm not going to have any member yelling at me. And if someone continues to do that, they're not likely to get a repeat call. On this occasion, Brendan Burns.
Apologies for the violence. This is an issue which I think deserves to excite the interests of members of the House, because I think there are very, very pronounced risks for New Zealanders under this bill in terms of the safety of their water, because there it is from the Canterbury DHB, an explicit submission to the Select Committee that there are very real risks by taking away the medical and health oversight of water schemes and handing it across in 35-year terms to the private sector, that you will risk doing exactly what happened in Walkerton, Ontario. We are risking the lives of New Zealanders by taking away that medical oversight. And allied to that, just a few weeks ago, I was able to discover that the Minister of Health has also taken an action which I think is involved and linked to this. Until very recently, the Ministry of Health had a team which was responsible for oversight of our drinking water schemes. That has now virtually ended. From a team of 5 2 years ago, there is now one staffer left in the Ministry of Health providing oversight for drinking water. Instead, the government has awarded a $2.25 million contract, $2.25 million of our taxpayers' money, to a consortium led by a company called Allen and Clark, which members opposite 5 years ago were describing as cronies. Cronyism, rampant cronyism was at work involving this company, Allen and Clark, said National Party members 5 years ago. But that hasn't stopped them awarding a $2.25 million contract to a consortium led by Allen and Clark to provide the oversight of our core public health function, the safety of our water. So I see a very strong linkage between that and what we have seen in this bill in respect of taking away at a local level the health oversight of drinking water. So put those two things together, and where are we going? We're going into a system where we will be handing over contracts to the private sector for 35 years without, at a local level, health input and oversight of drinking water schemes. And at a national level, as a result of the Minister of Health's intervention and the awarding of a $2.25 million contract to Allen and Clark in a consortium. So we now have a contracted out responsibility for what I think has to be a very clear public health function. If there is one thing that we as a first world nation should be able to do, it is to have some belief that this is safe to drink. And currently, fewer than 1 in 5 New Zealanders are able to be given that assurance. Fewer than 1 in 5 New Zealanders are able to be told explicitly that this is safe to drink. That is the statistic in the latest Ministry of Health report. Yes, it is. 2008-9 Ministry of Health annual survey. Ministry of Health 2008 survey shows that 80% of New Zealanders are drinking water that is assured to be safe, down from 83% in the previous year. 80% of New Zealanders, but 1 in 5, 20% of New Zealanders are not given assurance and do not know because either their water isn't tested or isn't safe when it is tested. That's the result. No, it's not scaremongering, because we saw what happened in Walkerton, Ontario, under precisely the sort of regime that this bill is leading to. Precisely. That is not my words. And there's another member from Rangitata. You stand up and take a call and deny what your local DHB is saying, an explicit warning. You go on the record and say this is a nonsense. My apologies, Mr. Chair. The member for Rangitata, not the Chair, the member for Rangitata should stand up and take a call and make sure that her constituents, currently she's the member for, maybe somebody else might be shortly, but make sure that you go on the record and say it's a nonsense what the Canterbury DHB is saying. And then go on the record and tell the House, and I'd like to see the Minister of Health come and say this as well, that it's appropriate to take away the Ministry of Health's role, hand it to a consortium at $2.25 million of our public funds, taxpayers' funds, a consortium which includes an outfit called Parsons and Brinckerhoff, which is an American engineering conglomerate, and my supposition